Okay, we're up to the last pasuk in chapter 12, Mishlei 12:28. And hold on just a second here. The translation is surprisingly difficult given the fact that the words are easy. There's a couple of complications. Okay, so Ba'orach Tzedaka Chaim V'derech Nesiva Al Mavis. Okay, anyone want to take a stab?
So, like, in the way of righteousness is life, and
Okay.
the way of nesiva. I don't know how to translate nesiva actually.
Yeah, so V'chol Nesivo Seha Shalom. So this
And
is one
all
of
the
the
branches. Like
no. Good guess though, because there is a tree in that pasuk. But
yeah.
yeah, Nesiva. Part of the difficulty here is Nesiva also means path.
Okay, fine.
Yeah. So
the path is
yeah, the path. And here's another.
wait, all mavis is not death?
Okay, yeah, right. So you would expect it to be El Mavis, right? Yeah. So the difficulty here is okay. So let's just get into the nitty-gritties here. Okay, so first of all, you'll notice that there's someone new here, not in the Zoom, but in the meforshim here. So who knows who the Minchas Shai is? Some people who've used Minchas Gedolos may be familiar, but it's not someone who you regularly use.
Was he related to the Minchas Chinuch?
Nope. Mincha is just a word in Hebrew that people use for their title. Yeah.
It's
so
yeah. Just very achronish, just like
yeah, Minchas Shai. I don't even remember his name. That's not it. Hold on. Probably easier if I go to, here's a little Al HaTorah hack, by the way. They don't have this for everyone. Sorry, they don't have the full database for everyone, but if you go to the commentary and you click the little lowercase I, it'll take you to a page of info. So a lot of them are not filled out, but at least you'll get the name. Rabbi Yedidia Shlomo Raphael ben Avraham Norzi in 1560 to 1616. So he basically was an early Acharon who set his goal to like basically comment on all of the manuscript issues in Tanakh. And so some of these involve like correct versus incorrect manuscripts. Some of them involve vowels and stuff. So anyone want to guess what made me go here this time? If you look at the pasuk, you have to be observant. So I noticed this little line above the hay, okay? And I was like, what is that? Okay, so I looked at the Minchas Shai, and what he says is Hahei Rafa. So the hay here is soft, which means there's no dagesh in it, there's no dot in it. Vihi Ru'uya b'mapik, but it should have a dot in it. Okay, so I don't know exactly like what the line is, but he's saying that it should have a dot. Okay, so the way of its path, we're gonna have to come up with, okay, this is the difficulty here. So orach, derech, and nesiva all mean path. So we're gonna have to come up with 3 synonyms here. But anyway, it's its path. Okay, then he says al mavis. So he says targumo limosa. So he says the Targum says b'orcha de tzidka chaye. So on the way of tzedakah is life. B'orach de avsana, and the way of I think when I looked up avsana, it meant the perverse one. Limosa is to death. Okay, so the Minchas Shai says Targumu limosa domishu kore el besagol. So he says it seems like the Targum had a version that had it with a sagol in it, okay, with a el mavis. I also saw this in many manuscripts, old manuscripts. And all of the other Sifrei Torah in front of me have a patach, have al mavis. And that's how all the meforshim explain it. Okay, so if you take it as al, how do you translate? In the way of on the way of righteousness is life, and the way of its path al mavis. How do you translate al mavis?
like with not say the one that's written in front of us.
Yeah,
is not. I mean that.
Yeah, so not death. Okay. So that it still feels weird, okay, and the weirdness is going to be talked about by none other than Alter. Okay, so let's see here. So Metzudas Tion says Nesiva is inyan shvil umasila. So Nesiva means a path or a paved way. Sadigon says B'orach hatzedek hachaim v'hi nesiv she'ein bo mavis. Now you notice he changes tzedakah to tzedek. Okay, why do you think he changes it to tzedek, or what do you think he's clarifying here?
Because orach is male.
That's a good guess. That might be grammatically why he's doing it.
Or Chaim, both Chaim and
But there's an ambiguity that he's like making a decision on.
So that it's not about like tzedakah, like the act of giving tzedakah?
Right. So the other way to translate it would be like tzedakah, right? Like let's say charity, even though I don't like the word charity. Right. So so he's taking a stance that it means on the way of tzedek, of righteousness, v'hi nesiv she'ein bo mavis, and it is a path that has no death on it. Okay, so let me just write this here. So on the way of life is, what do you say? Sorry. On the way of tzedakah, of righteousness is life, and on its path, and it is a path that has no death on it. And it is a path with no death on it. Okay. So then we have here, who else do we have? Okay, we did the Targum. So actually the Targum is important to say here. So I gotta get this smaller here. On the way of tzedakah is life, v'orach da'afsana, and the way of the perverse one, limosa, is to death. Okay, then we got the Malbim. Okay, so this is take this with a grain of Malbim here. Okay, Malbim, he says B'orach derech nasiv. So he says Havdelim lamala. So he says I explained what these three terms are above. So in Mishlei 1:15 he says Haderech hu derech harabim. Okay, so let me just get this Malbim here. Okay, so the Malbim. This is actually going to answer a question that we are probably going to list, but I'm listing this as a translation here. So he says, derech means derech harabim, means the public road. V'hanasiv hu shel yechidim. Nasiv is a private road. And then he says elsewhere in Mishlei Beis Yud Gimel Orchos Darhe Hisbar Etzli B'Kama Makom Shederach Haderach Hagadol Hakavua Over Me'ir Le'ir. So it's the public. I guess it's like the highway. Okay, is the public highway between cities. Orachu Hamistayef Min Haderach Hagadol Al Hatzad Al Hakfarim. Okay, so Orach is the what do you call it? The exit from the public highway into the villages, ushneim derech harabim, but both of them are public. Okay, but then he says shezeh havdel min nasiv shu derech hayachid. Okay, the nasiv is a private road. Okay, now again, this is the Malbim, so we don't have to take this at face value here, but that's his theory. Okay, all right, so we got all of our minimalist translations here. Let me just go now. We're going to go to the English. Let's move this down here. Okay, so hold on just 1 second here. Okay, so the R scroll says, in the pathway of charity, there is life. So they say charity. In the pathway it leads, there is no death. Rav Hirsch says, in the pathway of righteousness, there is life, and a road directed to immortality. Okay, so it looks like he wants to say that al mavis, literally no death, means immortality, right? So he's taking it literally there. Okay, and then Alter, okay, does a classical Alter bit. He says, on the pathway of righteousness is life, but the way of mischief is to death. So I was looking at that. I was like, where does he get that from? Okay, so here's what he says. The Masoretic text, which is the text that we use, the Masorah, with derech netiva al mawith, seems to say literally, and the way of path undeath. This does not sound like intelligible Hebrew. This translation, meaning his translation, follows a hint from three ancient versions, reads meshuva. So instead of reading the pasuk as nesiva, I guess he reads it as mishuva, mischief or waywardness for nativa, path, and in accordance with many Hebrew manuscripts, revocalizes al, not or un, as el too. Okay, so he like totally changes the pasuk. All right. Okay, so let me. What I'm going to do is like this. I'm going to post the in the chat the Sadigon and the two Malvin translations. Then I'm going to post the art scroll and the altar and the Rav Hirsch, and then we will just have our translation on the screen. Okay, so our translation is, again, in or on the, let's say, the road of righteousness. Oh, no, on the way, on the say road of righteousness is life, and the way of its path is not death. Okay, or to death. Yeah, okay, this is a little confusing here. A little confusing to get the words. Okay, a lot of toggles. Okay, but let's stick with this and see if this leads us anywhere. No pun intended. Okay, what are the questions?
I mean, what are we talking about? Like, what does it mean life, and what does it mean death? Like, what's the framework we're making?
All right, so what is, let's just use the Rabbi Moskowitz question. What is the subject of this pasuk? And I will go ahead and break the, I think each of these questions needs to be asked individually. So what does life mean in this context? And then I guess, what do life and death mean? Let's put that as one question. What do life and death mean in this context?
Is it fair to say that it's life is not, oh boy, this is hard. Life is life not death? I'm not sure I want to ask that. I guess I don't know what I'm saying. Is life and not death the same thing?
Okay, so that's a good question. So what is meant by not death? And is that the same as life?
Thanks.
Yeah. Avital.
Are these opposites, or they're supposed to be like one phrase, I guess?
Okay, are these two halves supposed to be opposites, or is this one phrase? Yeah, Ariel?
Actually, I was gonna ask that question, but let me see if I can think of another question really quickly. I can't. So.
Okay, Joseph.
What is the way here? I mean, like path and
Yeah.
like.
Okay. So let's go with all of the questions. Okay. What do orach, derech? Whoa! What happened to the font there? Hold on a second. What do orach, derech, and nesiva mean? Okay. If they're not synonyms, what are the differences, and why do they matter? Okay, yeah. Rivki?
Yeah, so is the only action, I guess, like there's two things I'm thinking. Number one, is the only action in this pasuk like tzedakah? And number two, I guess based off of that, like I'm not really understanding what's actually being done if that's the only thing that's being done.
Okay. So yeah, I guess I'm gonna say what is the, I'm gonna go ahead and make this into our main question, but I'll just make your question to a sub question. What is the practical decision making idea here? What actions is the pasuk even talking about?
Yeah, because it still
yeah.
seems like there's no characters, and it's more about if you're just doing tzedakah, like if you're leading a path, like if you're leading a life of tzedakah, as opposed to, you know, let's say not a Russia, that's like the worst example, long day. But you know.
Yeah, okay, I hear the question. Yeah, Ella?
I think that on.
Okay, so what does it mean that life is on the road of righteousness? And if it means, well, I guess one possibility maybe means that like the righteous or those who give charity live, but why does it use the not, like the road?
Okay,
to say that.
So what does it mean by life is on the road of tzedakah? Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and specify, because I think this is what you meant, is like, first of all, what does on or in mean? And then why is life being like represented as on or in the road? Yeah. Okay, good. Yeah, Ariel?
Yeah, I guess my question is like, what's the scenario of this case, if it is a specific
Yeah.
case, or it's just talking about like a objective reality or something?
What is the scenario of this pasuk? If there even is one. Right, because for all we know, this could just be talking about just the general like way of Mishlei. You know, it might not be about a specific scenario. Yeah, Yosef?
What is tzedakah here?
Yeah, you're right. We didn't ask that. So what is tzedakah here? So the primary question is righteousness or charity, and then either way, what is the definition in this context, right? So let's say like if it is charity, so then is that like, you know, fulfilling the mitzvah of tzedakah? Is it like the act of giving? Is it the amount of money or the goods that you're providing? And if it's righteousness, then are we talking like tzaddik level? Are we talking about any act of righteousness that any person does? What is the scope? Yeah, Vital?
Mine's like in a similar vein of like, who is this really directed towards? Like,
Right.
yeah.
Who is the intended audience of this pasuk? Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and incorporate what I just said there, which is like if tzedakah means righteousness, is this addressed specifically to the tzaddik, or I guess not addressed to? Is this addressed specifically to or about the tzaddik, or can this be about anyone who does an act of tzedakah? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we thought you have something else, or that's hand up from before.
Sorry, no, that's from before.
That's fine. Okay. All right. We're missing anything. Orach tzedakah chaim v'derech nesiva al mavis. Yeah, Ayala.
Just what does the second half mean? Like the way of its path
Yeah.
is not.
Yeah, let's I'm going to put that in the path question, or above the path question. What does derech nesiva, okay, the way of its path mean? Yeah. Ariel?
Yeah, what's the who's the audience of the pasuk?
Yeah, I think we said that.
Oh, we asked that?
Yeah.
Where?
Last question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. Okay, I think we got all the questions here. Yeah, I'll tell you another one.
I just kind of had a question on what the Malbim was saying. I was just wondering if he had like a place of where that was from, or that's what they were just like
So he
called during
says,
that time.
yeah, he's all I got here is just he's Barazli Bakama Makomos. I this has been clear to me from many places. So I guess this is the Malbim like doing a concordancia search and seeing that's how he thinks the words are used.
He doesn't say. Yeah, he doesn't say.
Yeah. Yeah, and it is interesting also that Rav Hirsch, I mean, I would guess that Rav Hirsch has a theory about this as well, but he didn't spell it out in his commentary, so we're on our own for that. Okay, let me copy and paste the questions into the chat, and then we will take our thinking moment. And yeah, this is a tough one. It's a different kind of tough than we've had before, because it is the subject is very vague, but the way it's talking about it is very specific, you know. So this isn't our typical oh, this is obvious, you know. This is like, what is it getting at, is more of the kind of question that I think we have to ask here.
Can I just ask a question real quick?
Yeah.
Why is there not what is not life?
You mean not death?
No, I mean, what is not life?
What is
there
not
such a
life?
thing as not life? If there's such a thing as not death?
Right. Yeah, so I guess let me add that on to.
I mean, it's sort of number 5, I guess, when you're going to define it. But
yeah, it last what do you call it? It extends to different questions here, but I'll put it over in the opposites one. Is what is the opposite of life? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, the not death is weird. Okay, so one of the things I'm going to just give a little suggestion about how to think about this is you should think about this in specific translations, like make a commitment to in versus on, make a commitment to righteousness versus charity, and make a commitment to how you translate the pasuk. So whenever, if you're gonna you have an idea, I'm going to ask you to start off with how are you translating the pasuk right now, because I think that'll help us to keep our eye on the ball. So let's think. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and ask an Ariel question on half the pasuk, okay? Which is
Wait, can I ask it?
Okay, go ahead.
I think the first half is really obvious.
Okay, good. Can you spell out why?
Yeah, because of course, if you're in the road of righteousness, like isn't that is the life, like the righteous path is ultimately going to yield you the best possible life. Okay, so like you don't need to tell me that.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and just expand that the way I was going to say it, which is, isn't the first half obvious no matter how you translate it, okay? And no matter what it means, okay? In other words, if you translate it as tzedakah, as tzedek, right? So we've seen 3 chapters about how the tzaddik promotes life in other people. We've seen how he's going to have life, in himself. If it's talking about actual tzedakah, then tzedakah saves from death. Tzedakah is providing people with what they need. So it sounds like, either way you take it, it's going to be obvious. So that leads me to believe that our focus should be on the second half, and then use that to try to infer what the first half means. But that's just my intuition. But okay, let's think.
One quick question.
Yeah.
Can all mean negates, or does it really mean just not?
It could be negate, in other words. So if you could like translate it in another way that conveys negation, then that's a possibility.
Okay.
Yeah, I just want to point out, I want to clarify a question as well here. The Malbim explained that Nesiv is a private road and Derech is a public highway. So Derech Nesiva, the public road of its private way, like that just doesn't quite fit unless he's learning that phrase differently. Confusing. Copy. Okay, Ariel, what do you got?
It's not full.
That's fine.
But it's
I
think the second half of the pasuk, and the way of its path. I'm going to use Rav Sadigan. Yeah.
Okay, so righteousness.
Yeah, the righteousness.
Okay. On the road of righteousness is life, and the way of its path, not. Are you going to do not death?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that, I mean, what does it mean that it's not death? Like the path of the righteousness is not death.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I'm reading it. It just means that it's kind of like a two-sided coin. Like there are like the positives of what you get out of life, and then there are like no consequences, no negative consequences, which is the other side of the coin. So maybe not death means that you're not just going to have the positives of being on this road, but you're also not going to encounter any negative aspects of, negative aspects of life, I guess, like in a way.
I think this is a good start. Okay, so you are going with the assumption that the first half is obvious. Okay, so not only do you get all the benefits of righteousness, okay, that Mishlei spells out, okay, referred to here as life, but you don't get any of the negatives that you would ordinarily get.
Right. I mean, I'm not satisfied because I still feel that like it's like, I mean, I feel like you could have learned that out, intuitively from from the first half of the pasuk without even saying the second half of the pasuk.
Okay, so I still think we need to explain how this works though. So what does that mean that you don't get any of the negatives that you would get? In order to yeah.
It means that wait, sorry. It's what needs explanation? I feel like it's like kind of
explain why you would think that you get negatives and this is telling you you're not, or why does a normal person who's not on the path of tzedek get negatives and the tzaddik doesn't?
Oh, okay, fine. So maybe so let's say I'm an observer, right?
Yeah.
Let's say I observe a tzaddik and like I see that I only see a lot of success with them because that's just he just lives that there's like that's the vibe, but it's coming to show not only do you see success, but you also don't see any any challenges, or I say I don't like I have to be careful how I say it because I don't know if that's entirely true. I think that he'll still have challenges in life, but I guess I'm translating a little loosely. I mean, he's not gonna have any obstacles in life where it's kind of like contradicts. I can't really explain it, but
yeah. So I think that I think you're on the right. I think you're on a good track. I think we need to explain what it means though. Yeah. All right. Does anyone feel like their idea is in a similar vein? Yeah, Rifki, you want to say?
Yeah, so I think that it is, but I'm not. I mean, yeah, I think so.
Could be different, but I'm just I want to branch outward. Yeah.
So basically, I was thinking like similar in the first half. I mean, yeah, it's like very straightforward, at least at face value. And I was thinking that more along the lines of, like, I'm also going with Sadigon. So that's also why I think that it might be based off of the beginning of Ariel's idea.
Yeah.
But that when he says it's a path with no death on it. So obviously we know that every single person will eventually die. So that
no. Yeah.
Take it to everyone, but basically we know that. And I think that what he's really saying here is two things. Number one is that because we believe that at the end of the day, even though there is Ra in the world, which go to EO for that, but whatever, that then we expect that if we do the things that we should do, that we'll have outcomes that are beneficial for us. And I think that one way of that happening is, let's say that, like, I don't know, Avital does a lot of tzedakah in whatever way that means. Like, she's a very righteous person. And I think that the benefits of that in real life makes the community around her know that she's a person that is righteous. And therefore, if she's in a situation where she needs help, then they'll help her. So I think, like, God forbid, if, I don't know, like something negative might happen to her, then she might avoid either a negative consequence or even death because she is a righteous person and people recognize that.
Yeah.
I think it's also, I was thinking the second half of it, like a more, I guess, spiritual, I'm not sure what word to call it, idea, is that when you're a righteous person and when you, I guess, like, help the community, even if you're not necessarily on the level of a tzaddik, that your, like, legacy, quote unquote, is that. So even if when you do die, that there isn't death on your path in the sense of your, I guess, like, wishes and your people, when people think of you, you're still going to be thought of in a positive way, as opposed to someone who doesn't have that trait.
Okay. All right. So let me just capture what you're saying here. I think those are two possibilities. Interestingly enough, not possibility that I was thinking for Ariel, but these are two possibilities. Okay, so one possibility is that because the path of righteousness is so evidently beneficial to those around you, they will ensure that you will not suffer the like negatives that that a non-tzaddik would. Okay, I think we've had an idea like this in a long time ago, actually. I'm not saying it's the same idea, but I think
Yeah, we have.
yeah, you know what I think it was? I think it was in chapter 10 even. Wow. Okay, I think it was 10:4, 10:6. I mean, brachos l'rosh tzaddik ufi roshayim yichasei chamas. I don't remember what we said for the second half, but I remember that idea that blessings are showered upon the head of the tzaddik, that people will give him brachos, meaning good things. Okay, so that's one approach. Another approach, and I think I have a feeling, I've not looked at the meforshim yet, but I have a feeling that a lot of them are going to take this path, which is that, oh, what did you say for the second half?
I was saying the idea
legacy, right? Yeah, yeah. That because the tzaddik's legacy is not in the physical, then it really won't die. Okay, right? So, for example, like Shlomo HaMelech's legacy is Chochmah, is Mishlei, right? And that's still going strong. Okay. So like, whereas, if you take death to mean all, entropy, decay, deterioration, so all paths that are non-tzedek paths lead to eventual degradation and stuff like that, but the tzaddiks does not.
Yeah, also what I like about this is that because it doesn't have any specific Mishlei character, like I was asking about that, why does it only say tzedek, is that I think the audience could essentially be anyone, that it's really just, I guess, promoting the idea of this type of lifestyle will be beneficial, not just for yourself and the community, but also like that part of us that doesn't want to die.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, good. So then I'll add that part also, right? Which is that, so this is almost like a Kohelesi Mishlei pasuk, right? That this is, this pasuk is showing us, that that the closest we can get to immortality in this world, okay, is the life of tzedek. And I say in this world because I do think that there are going to be meforshim who say that. Oh, I mean, we saw Rav Hirsch already say this. That where do you say it? That a road directed to immortality. That there's definitely a thing of like the soul will be immortal, but I think it's a much more bigger chiddush to say that in this world, like you're investing your whole life in something that is going to continue to last, beyond you. Okay, good. All right, I like these two possibilities. Yeah, Avital.
Okay, mine was kind of in a different direction.
That's fine.
So I was looking at the first half of the pasuk as first of all, I translated it as righteousness, not charity is life. But I don't know if it's like, it's definitely tied with like what's going on now / also I guess if I was going to give it a name, it would be like the ends don't justify the means, like that kind of thing.
Okay.
That it seems that the first half of the pasuk is talking about like, okay, so it seems like there's a road to life and the road is righteousness. But then the second half kind of like clarifies the statement as in like, there's like a way of a path, which kind of means like to me, like meant like it's not as direct as you think, but like even on that path, which is not so direct, like because obviously like righteousness is not so easy, but it's not death. So like let's say to give the most extreme example is like literally who think that like righteousness in their life is gonna be like, let's say Hamas or whatever is death of others or whatever it is, right?
Okay.
So like things like that kind of, what is righteousness to them? It's like, oh, it's gonna cause these death and like ultimately like that'll be like a good life. But like if you take that back a few steps and make it like to our everyday life, okay, you think you want to do something good, but along that way to doing what is good and what is righteous, you can't do like sneaky things along the way that are not righteous, because like along that path, it's not like death that's going to get you to these good places, that it has to be like righteous along the whole path, like every, like, I guess, turn in the road.
Okay, I think I see the shape of your idea, but I think I'm confused on some of the particulars. So let me write down what I think I see so far, right? Which is that there's the destination, okay, of the path, okay, which is life, but the pasuk is telling you that the like I don't know exactly what the best words are to use here, like the
like means to.
Yeah, I don't want to say means, because I like the way you described it. It's really talking about like the route you take on the
because it's like the way of the path.
Yeah, that the way of the path. Yeah, the pasuk says it perfectly, right?
The method.
Say again.
Method.
Method is closer than means. Yeah. Approach, right? The approach you use on the path. Okay.
Choices, is choices valid or
yeah,
not?
I guess the particular choices or approach you take on that path. Oops, hold on a second. On that path should not involve any death. Okay, so
like
I think
almost the opposite of, because the opposite of Chaim is Mavet.
Yeah.
So like, but even so, that would be like the most extreme. So like, obviously, if you're trying to get to life, you don't do death, but even more so, like not even more so, but like on a smaller scale, I guess, every step of your of the road to get to life should not be like death, should not be like this perverse or opposite to.
Yeah, okay. I'm gonna give you a weird example, okay? And tell me if this is not an example of your idea, but I think it's an example of what you're trying to accomplish with your idea. So I'm not going to open a can of worms. I'm just going to show you the can of worms, but just to point to my example in it, is in discussions about the revelation at Har Sinai, okay, and all the discussions about like that argument and everything like that. Then you have mass revelation and et cetera, et cetera. But then you always have someone who asks the question of like, well, what if Moshe Rבינו was really just like lying, so there's all of the like reasons why that doesn't work out practically, but there's another argument you can make, which is that the whole like trajectory of Torah, the whole thing that Torah is aiming for is a life of truth. So it would be even if you wanted to hold that like there's some like major lie that the Torah was premised upon, it doesn't stand to reason that like anyone who invented a system, again, I'm not saying that the Torah is invented, but I'm saying like I'm trying to like articulate this argument here, is that it would be absurd to say that someone who is like making a whole system about truth is going to found it on the basis of a lie. Like if the whole thing is aimed at this one ultimate goal, you can't involve anything in the means that contradict that one goal. Or another example would be if you have a doctor, a doctor is going to strive for life at all costs, but you would never have a doctor who says, okay, if I can just kill this one guy and harvest all of his organs, then I'll be able to like practice better medicine, like the means, and now I see why you're saying means, the means of getting there can't involve compromises of that ultimate value. Is that like the
exactly, like the particulars can't contradict the end goal.
Okay. Can't contradict the end goal. So say another example is like in Torah, that's not how you spell contradict. So in Torah, there are 3 mitzvos that we say yehareg val yavor, that you have to give up your life rather than violate. Okay. And 2 of them are in one category and the other one's in the other category. 2 of them are murder and then arayos, the prohibited sexual relations that are in Parshas Acharemos. So murder, the reason why we say that you can't, if someone says, holds a gun to your head and says, kill this person or I'll kill you, you are not allowed to commit murder. And the reason there is because you can't make that decision. Right, we say who's to say that your blood is more precious than before God, so you have to basically abstain from making that call. Okay, and arayos is analogized to murder. Okay, so those 2 are like the own category, but avodah zara the reason why you can't do avodah zarah under the pain of death is avodah zarah undermines the whole system. Okay, that's also why a navi can temporarily suspend any mitzvah of the Torah. But if he even temporarily suspends avodah zarah, then you know that he's a false prophet. You know, so like anything that goes against the entire nature of the thing can't be can't be accepted. Now, here's my question on your idea, okay, which is there are mitzvahs that involve, death, right? Like if Shaul HaMelech made this argument when he was asked, when he was commanded to kill Amalek and said, well, I can't do anything that involves death, you would say like, but the Torah does command you to kill Amalek, so like, can we like just narrow the parameters a little bit and still maintain the idea? Another example is like, the Torah has death penalties, and obviously we don't like dish them out cavalierly, but, it's not like the Torah is, there are like systems that are completely against death in all forms. And that's not what the Torah is.
Right. I mean, just one thing that I could think of now, and I want to think about it more, is like the word tzedakah, or not tzedakah, the word tzaddik, like we always talk about as somebody who follows like the letter of the law.
Yeah.
So in terms of that, like along this way to life, like this justice system is within the letter of the law. So anything that would be included in that would be directly on the path of Chaim, versus things that would be on the way where you're kind of like making justifications on things that aren't part of this, even if you think it'll achieve your goal in the end of like living a more righteous life. Like I'm trying to think of like an example where like people would think like, oh, like I'm just trying to do this to be nice, like I wanted to make her feel good or whatever it is. Right. So like whether it's I invited her without wanting her to come, or I knew she wasn't going to be there or something like that, like you're trying to be righteous, even if you really are, even if like genuinely you are, but like you could recognize that at each little point you're like, that wasn't really exactly actually on the path of the righteous. Like it's not, you can't just justify the means by the end. Like you can't do that.
You know what might be interesting, again, I haven't done the commentary yet, but based on what the Malbim said, then what you're saying now kind of fits into the second half, that if Orach and Derech are both like public roads, Derech is the interstate highway and Orach is like the exit that goes into the villages. Nesiva is the personal path, and so the area in which the practical application of the pasuk applies is when you're trying to make these like little personal paths within the journey towards a life of righteousness. Let's leave this open, okay, and not try to like prematurely close it right now, because I think this is a good approach, but I think it needs to percolate a little bit more. Okay, let's go with the Yosef next.
Okay, yeah, so I'm gonna go think a lot.
Your audio is a little bad, Yosef. I don't know if I assume it's on your side.
Hold on, yeah. Let me. Is this any better?
Yeah, so far.
Okay, so far. So if it stays. Okay, so I think my general approach is like this. I think it's grappling with like what you said before with the Kohel's question, which is what's the value of a life if it's just gonna die, right? And I think it's saying that the life and it's saying basically you're right unless you live a life of tzedakah.
Yeah.
Which is that the orach tzedakah is leads to life, meaning that it does in olam hazeh perpetuate itself, right?
Yeah.
But and it will allow you to succeed. But then also v'chol nesiva al maves, meaning it seems like derech nesiva is saying like the smaller things that result from the orach. So I'm gonna take that as a metaphor for like results.
Okay.
I think that's saying that it's actually saying that the result of it is that it will actually negate death, that it will actually be something that lives on.
Anti-death.
Yeah, anti-death. And I think it also makes a lot of sense considering that I think the beginning of the pasuk is actually it makes a lot of sense with especially the way like we learn in Chazal that that Olam Haba is not the priority, right? That it's really the Orach Chaim is the Orach Tzedakah is the priority, and that the Derech Nesiva al Maves, right, the part that is immortal, is it is a reward, but it is not the primary thing, right?
Right.
And so I think it fits with that idea, is that the beginning is really the orach tzedakah chaim, is that is the true way to live. And that's being in line with reality. And that as a natural result of that, derech nesiva, right? It's personal paths, right? Al maves negates death, right? That's the result of it.
Yeah. Okay. I think I got. I'm having a little bit of difficulty differentiating between the general approach along these lines we were taking, and then the specific chiddush that you're saying. So I'm going to try here. Okay, that that the path of.
You want me to just explain real quick?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead. Yeah.
The general question I think it's just dealing with is, you could take two ways with this. You could say that there's some. You could either say within olam hazeh, derech nesiva al maves, right? Is that it's the only that's talking about olam hazeh, or you could say that's time olam haba, right? But it has to be, there must be something it's talking about that makes this life substantial. That's what I'm seeing.
Okay. All right, so let me just get this down first. So this is either olam hazeh or olam haba, but the central question it's addressing is what makes this life worth living, given the fact that you're going to die. Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
And then the specific ideas, like what I said about the Chazal and like the Olam Haba versus Olam Hazeh idea, that really the primary thing is Olam Hazeh, and that's why that's in the beginning, is that you should live in reality, and that will perpetuate itself within Olam Hazeh, and that's the true path within this world. That is Chaim. And as a natural result, there will be something immortal because of that, which is Olam Haba.
Okay, so if it's about Olam Hazeh, then the first half is saying that your tzedakah lifestyle is perpetuating life in this world, which is an ongoing value, even after you die. And there will be a result that is non-death in Olam Haba. And that's the second half.
Yeah, and the reason why the first half is said first, even though it seems like less of a chiddush and the rest of it, is saying that really that's the primary thing, is really that living in reality is the primary goal. And it's only as a natural result of that there is Olam Haba, but really the primary goal and function of man is that Orach Chaim.
Yeah, okay. The immortality is just a side perk. Yeah. Yeah, okay, good. Best side perk there is, but it's still a side perk. Okay, good. All right. Yeah, I am almost certain that I could totally see the Meiri talking about this in Derech Nister. Well, I guess we'll find out. Okay, Ariel, you're up.
All right, I'm gonna do a different approach.
A different approach, okay.
Yeah. So it's interesting. The question that I had two questions that kind of led me to this approach. One question is, why is it specifically focused on the road of righteousness versus like the tzaddik himself, right? Why not just use him as like a paradigm and just learn from him versus the road?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah.
And the other question
that's usually the way Mishlei talks about it, right? It'll say that the tzaddik gets XYZ,
yeah,
not that the road
and the other question is like, who's the audience?
Right.
Those are the two questions that come.
Okay, those are good jumping off point questions. Yeah.
Yeah. Which leads me to believe that I think the audience of this, I don't think the pasuk is talking about a tzaddik. I think it's talking about an individual who's, on the quest to find the path in life.
Okay.
And he may not necessarily be a tzaddik.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So he's kind of using, the derech, the derech of a tzaddik, as a guide. And I think that maybe you could say that sometimes you may be wondering, like, look, if I'm not a tzaddik, right? Like, will I even? And I think this is the chiddush. I think the chiddush is that if I'm not a tzaddik, who knows? Like, will I actually be getting the benefits of a tzaddik, or and also like kal v'chomer, like if I'm not a tzaddik, will I? Is this path safe for me? Like, how would I know? So I think the pasuk's coming to answer those questions.
Okay, so the pasuk is coming to answer the questions, like how do I know if this path will be good for me as a non-tzaddik? Okay, and the answer that it's giving is yes. What's the answer it's giving?
Right. So that's of course, knowing how a tzaddik lives life, that's not a chiddush.
Yeah.
That's that it's interesting because like, why wouldn't the observer already know this?
Yeah. Yeah, especially because I feel like a lot of the pesukim we've done about tzaddik in the last couple years, we have taken the approach that the tzaddik doesn't need the pasuk. This really is for, I mean, there are pesukim that talk about like specifically defining what a tzaddik is, but then I feel like we did a lot of pesukim over the last like year and a half that are like showing the benefits of the tzaddik's lifestyle specifically for the non-tzaddik, that the tzaddik doesn't need to see that, Yeah. I think there's also a problem. This is a good first approach. I think it still needs to be fleshed out. And I still sense the
which leads me it kind of like I'm still stuck on. I mean, my first approach, it's the same question. Like it's not
really I had something for your first approach, but I still gotta think about it a little bit more. Let's go with Ayala, and then I'm gonna try filling out Ariel's first approach after that.
Sure.
Okay, so actually also I was jumping off of Ariel's first approach.
Okay, let's go back to that then.
So with the same translation that he was using.
Sure, I'm gonna just move it up here. Yeah.
And also I was focusing on the question of why is it like on the road of righteousness is life?
Yeah.
And like why does it say on the road of righteousness? Right. And like kind of the imagery that I had is like the tzaddik is like going on this path and like along the way he's like picking up life kind of.
Okay.
And okay, I guess I'll just give a case example.
Sure.
Like let's say Abraham, for example, like everyone saw that whatever he was doing, he was being successful getting life. But I think like what the pasuk is teaching you is that it's not like some accidental thing that like Abraham just happened to be this like super lucky guy, but right. That is the road of righteousness.
Okay.
Which is leading him to this.
Right. And
additionally, like Avram's avoidance of negative consequences is not just by chance, but this road itself is like away from death. Like death is not on that road.
All right. I like that general approach to the pasuk. So this pasuk is like uprooting the hava amina that a person might have, namely that if you're on the path of a tzaddik, you just happen to get life sometimes and avoid death. The pasuk is teaching us no, this is an intrinsic part of the path, and these results are not accidental. Is that what you're saying? Okay, so I think we just need to flesh it out a little bit more, but I think that is a good approach here. So what would lead us to think that they're accidental? Like what is, I feel like I want to understand that mistake a little bit more. And I think more examples would help. I think Avram is a great example, but I think Avram is a little too abstract, Okay, at the risk of going too narrow in my example, I do want to use an example that that has worked before for other stuff. So I think that an expert poker player, okay, who is making decisions based on like knowledge of the probability and the game. Statistically, expert poker players, for them, it's not gambling. It is engaging with the math in a way that is sure to yield results. So if they keep at it, then they're going to get the good results. Okay. So someone who's a lay person who looks at them and sees that they, that they won, the layperson is somehow still going to chalk it up to chance. Like, oh, they just got lucky, or like, this is like it's going well for them now, but it's eventually not going to go well. And then when the poker player, like, in order to play poker on a professional level, you have to be willing to like lose lots of hands, because you have to do whatever the numbers tell you to do, and whatever the table's telling you to do. And like, if the table's telling you to do one thing, then you're going to end up like losing money. In the long run, though, you're gonna be winning. So the novice who like looks at the expert losing money is gonna say, "Ha, see, you're subject to probability just like the rest of us." But really, this is all part of the plan that the poker player is doing. Like he's on the path to success in poker, and that is not a path that is going to be like leading him to the bad results, to like losing, but the novice can't see that, because I think the novice doesn't see that there is a system of chachma that you can stick to get these results here, and I think that's what like people who don't understand the lifestyle of tzedek, or who don't want to acknowledge that there is an objective good or bad, they're going to look at the tzaddik and they might like begrudgingly acknowledge that he's getting successes and getting like satisfaction in life, but they're they don't want to accept that that this lifestyle consistently produces those results. They want to view it as like he's just getting lucky, or like it's just his circumstances. It's not really like his path. In other words, they want to chalk it up to something other than his lifestyle. I think I'm like in the same realm as your idea, right, Ayala? I don't know if this is the only way to take it, but yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Okay, so I'm just gonna addendum here is that that people will look at the good things in the tzaddik's life as if they're happening to him by circumstance or chance. They won't realize that that like there is a recipe for success, and that recipe is the cause of the tzaddik's success. Okay.
Maybe can I try to add why?
Yeah, sure.
Someone fall into this?
Yeah.
I think like in a way it's kind of easier to just like dismiss it as chance, and like this guy is constantly getting lucky, because then you don't have to do the work that it takes to learn chachma and stick to this diligent system. Yeah.
Okay, good. Because then you have an excuse to not work on yourself, on aligning yourself with this path. Okay, I think that's a good idea. Okay, Arya.
Yeah, it's David.
Okay,
so,
I figured that was the case.
Yes. Okay, so different idea. It's not like a fully fleshed out Mishleic idea, but it's making me think a lot of like when someone's in a growth mindset, like you can never actually get harmed. Like there's no actual harm, because everything you can use for your own betterment. And I don't know how to take into like make it a Mishleic idea, but this pasuk definitely has that type of feel.
That's the approach I wanted to take for Ariel's first approach. Yeah. So let me try. Okay. To make this Mishlei. So let me go with Ariel's first approach again. So Ariel said that the first half is the obvious half, which is that you get all these benefits which are life. Okay. But but it's also saying that you get that path is a non-death path, or an anti-death path. So again, if death here does not mean like actual death is just means like all the bad stuff. So I don't think there are any bad things that you get if you're following the path of tzedek, because anything that you suffer, or any loss that you have, you're going to be able to turn that into something that is for your self betterment. So you're really not getting anything. It's not like you're going to avoid pain, but pain is only death if you view it as bad. If pain is something that is used as an impetus for self-examination or growth, so then that is that's something that is good. In fact, I heard a great example of this right before the shiur. So I've been listening to this. I don't know. I'm sure we're all struggling with this in different ways, about like how to moderate your news intake. So I found, in terms of the Israel situation, I found my strategy has been to have one news update in the morning, 2 news updates in email, and I have one podcast I listen to during lunch, which is called the Times of Israel Daily Briefing. So we all know about that, the hospital disaster that happened like a couple weeks ago, and everyone was all up in arms because Hamas blamed it on Israel, on Israel, and then Israel finally did the investigation and then determined that it was Islamic Jihad, and like it wasn't even what like they reported. It wasn't a hospital that was bombed. It was like the parking lot or whatever. So I think a lot of us, I can speak for myself, a lot of us just felt anger at the world. And said like everyone's just so quick to jump to blaming Israel, and Hamas is so disgusting because like they lie and everything like that. So yeah, all that's true. But this guy on this briefing, I don't know who it was, he said, what the problem was? He says the problem is Hamas is clearly better at using the media, but he said the Israel had no one that issued a public statement that said we don't bomb hospitals. There was no one in Israel issued that. So no one was in charge of it. And instead what happened was the IDF went to investigate, and then 3 hours later, they put out a thing that said, we think that this was not us. And then they finally determined that it was Islamic Jihad. But the problem was that no one on our side was manning the news desk and issued a public statement saying that this is under investigation, but Israel doesn't bomb hospitals. So in other words, this person used it as an opportunity for tshuva. Said, okay, fine, this bad thing happened, but instead of just like getting angry at all our enemies, we should look and say, well, how can we use this as an opportunity to do tshuva and say, well, what can we do better in terms of the way we're managing our own media? I know this is a very, very niche example, but I wanted to quote it because it's timely, So same thing with, the tzaddik is going to make mistakes. The tzaddik is going to like have failures, but as long as the tzaddik is using that to further his tzedek or further his personal growth, then they're not death. So his derech itself is an anti-mavis derech. Okay, so this is, I think, what David was getting at. I hope that's what you're getting at, David. Okay, so not only does the tzaddik reap all the benefits of the lifestyle of tzedek, okay, but even setbacks and harms and pain will be utilized by him to further that lifestyle. So his path really is immune to death, okay, i.e. bad things. Yeah. And I don't think that this is just projecting an idea into the pasuk. I think this is what the pasuk is saying. Okay, let's look at some meforshim now. Okay, I haven't looked at these yet, other than copying and pasting them. Okay, Matuz David says, "Haholech b'derech tzedakah yimtza chaim, b'derech nesiv hatzedakah lo yimtza as hamavis b'kafel hadavar miloshonos." Thanks. He says, "One who walks on the path of tzedakah will find life, and the way of its path of the path of tzedakah, he will not find death." And it repeats the thing in different words. Okay, thumbs up to him. Okay, that did not help us. All right, if he's saying an idea, I don't know what it is. All right, let's go to Rבינו Yona. Okay, Rבינו Yona. Oops. I will translate this here. I just got to change the font. Okay, so Rבינו Yona says, I think this is a radically different approach, if I remember correctly when I copied and pasted. Pa'amim rabim, in many cases, Yosifu ayimei ha'adam ba'ad ma'aseh tzedakah. A person's lifespan will be augmented by an act of tzedakah. So he seems to be learning as charity. Okay, v'zeh davar barur. This is clear. It is a clear matter. It is a clear matter. Kilot tiktzorna shenos bal tzedakah. That the years of a bal of a bal tzedakah will not be cut short. He tagin alav v'tatzileu, because it will shield him and save him. Now, I don't know, given the fact that this is Rבינו Yona, I don't know if he means this in a natural consequences way or in a hashgacha pratis way. Not sure. Gam yesh lahavin mizeh. one can also infer from this ki tzaddik lo yifane libo levatala, that a tzaddik will not turn his mind to idleness. Ki machshavosav mishpat v'tzedek, because his thoughts are justice and righteousness. I think this is here he's using as righteousness, not charity. Kasher shavach es tzaddik lamala she'ein sichas b'teila, and when he praised a tzaddik earlier, saying that his conversation is not idle. Now, when was that earlier? That was very earlier. That was in 1031. Okay. Piv tzaddik yanuv chachma. The mouth of the tzaddik will produce chachma fruit. Onesh hamafane libo levatala gadol me onesh sicha betela. The punishment of one who turns his mind to idleness is greater than the one who the punishment of idle chatter. Kihu mishtamish levatala beikar hachelak asher ba'adam v'hu adas, because the former person is utilizing the essence of what makes him man, namely the mind, and he's using that for idleness. As it is, as it says, the root of the tzaddik will yield. Okay, that was Mishlei 12:12. Ooh, this is the next Mishnah we're doing in my Pikr Alvo shiur. Not this week, but the week after that. Blinetter, I believe. Yeah, so he says this is utilized as a metaphor in Chazal. Mish anafa memasav meruvim michachmaso, one whose deeds are more numerous than his wisdom. Lamahu dome, what may he be compared to? Ilan shesharashav meruvim me anafav, to a tree whose roots outnumber its branches. I think that's like what we call a normal tree. No, that's right. That's something different. Roots outnumber the branches. Okay. Upi yisharim yatzilem, and the mouth of the upright will save them. Mechovas harushaim lefakeach. This looks like it's from a different pasuk. That looks like it's from a different pasuk. Okay, I'm going to ignore that. Upi yisharim yatzilem. 12:6. Mechovas harushaim. Okay, yeah. So what is Rבינו Yona getting at here? Where does he get this from in the pasuk? He has two interpretations here, right? He's saying the first one is that tzedakah will prolong your life. So on the path of tzedakah, life will be found. So again, if you're going to understand this in terms of hashgacha pratis, so then there's not much to say. Then this is just saying that you're going to get a zechus that's going to extend your life, you know. But if you're going to take this in terms of the natural benefits of tzedakah, I think we've had ideas like this before as well, which is that a tzaddik, in order to do tzedakah, you need to be proficient in analyzing human needs and allocating resources in ways that are maximally beneficial. So the more you practice tzedakah with other people, then not only are you going to be like helping the immediate system that you're a part of, which is going to be beneficial for you, but you're also going to be practicing engaging in needs assessment and resource allocation, and you're going to have a much greater idea about your own needs. So you can extend your life naturally through that as well. But again, that's not a chiddush. We've known that before. So then on the way of its path is not death. So according to this idea, what would that be? Yeah, Ariel?
I'm sorry. Did you say that, someone who gives tzedakah, he does what? He has like
I'm saying midoraisa tzedakah is not 10%. It's day machzoro asher yachzalo, is whatever the poor person needs, and that means physical needs, social needs, psychological needs. So if you give tzedakah, you're a bal tzedakah, you do this on a regular basis, you're going to be constantly assessing other people's needs. You're going to have an enhanced ability to do that. You're going to have a better idea of needs versus wants. You're going to have a better grasp on how many resources you have. You're going to be more efficient at allocating those resources. So all of these skills are going to develop, and those skills are going to prolong your own life.
Right, but
yeah.
Yeah, but isn't there, because there was another pasuk that we learned actually, I remember a while back, I think it was in the morning shiur, that another idea that we had of someone giving tzedakah, there may be a point where he may need tzedakah and his life might be in danger,
right,
or threatened.
Yeah, that's part of it also. Yeah, like Avital was saying.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. So now I'm trying to say what's the chiddush in this pasuk though, and I still feel like just the way that the pasuk is stated, then the chiddush seems to be in the second half, either on the not death part or on this weird phrase of the derech of its nasiv. It's a nasiva. So that's what I'm not sure about. Okay, but that was all according to Rביnu Yona's first approach. According to his second approach, he's taking this in a very different direction. He's saying that that the tzaddik's mind is going to be dedicated to tzedek, and therefore he's always giving life to his mind, as opposed to the non-tzaddik is going to occupy his mind with nonsense, and that's going to be like a form of death. I mean, what this reminds me of is like Chazal's statements, and again, this is kind of an extreme case, but like Rishaim afilu b'chayehem kruim mesim, that the wicked, even during their life, even while they're alive, are called dead, and the tzaddikim afilu b'misasim him kruim chaim, and the tzaddikim even when they're dead are called alive. That he seems to be saying that what makes you a human being is your mind, and if you use your mind for chachma and if you use your mind for tzedek, you're really living as a human. But if you're not using your mind for chachma and tzedek, and it's just going to waste, you're like the Walking Dead. You're not really living while you're even though you're moving around and doing like physical stuff. So he seems to be taking the life in that sense, that like only the tzaddik whose mind is constantly occupied with tzedek is really living. Rif, you want to add to that?
Yeah, I was just gonna say it's definitely not my idea at all. That I'm reading the Rav on Bereshis right now, which I'm plugging because it's literally the best.
Sure.
But so he says, like, I mean, this is very classic the Rav. It's in like most of his Sfarim that we're supposed to be like emulating Hashem, and that's why we have like this creative ability. And I think part of that creativity is that we have this ability to do righteousness. And just like, it's not just that Hashem is a creative being and that he made the universe in a way that has creativity in it, but it's also that we know that he has like tzedakah, no, whatever. He has righteousness as a character trait.
Yeah.
So I just,
that's good. That's a good plug. Yeah. Yeah. I think that is, related to the idea. Yeah. Ariel, are you wanting to add something to this?
No. Oh,
okay.
Yeah,
that's good. Yeah. Ayala?
Not really anything new, but this sounds to me similar to Yosef's idea.
Yes, it does. Yeah. Yeah. I think this really fleshes out Yosef's idea about the getting life in Olam Hazeh, right? That you're actually living here. I just want to translate this into practical terms here, okay? Which is, I think that there's a question that we ask our other people or ask ourselves if we're honest, like, what are you doing with your life? But that kind of is a mistake because that presupposes that you have a life and then the only question is what you do with it. The Torah is not assuming that you have a life. You have to make a life by living as a human, and living as a human is two things, chachma and tzedek, and by chachma, I mean like all of the realm of like involving yourself in knowledge. And by tzedek, I mean chesed, tzedakah, and mishpat, and so like that is your life. I mean, it's kind of related to like the question of, well, like, what's the purpose of your life? There's no external purpose outside of living as a human being. And if you're doing that, then like you're really living. I still feel like this idea is too much up in the clouds, which I know the pasuk says is talking about paths. I feel like it's not as like down to earth practical as the Mishleic ideas that we usually have. And I don't know if that's a fault in our learning of it or if that's just the style of the pasuk. Yeah, Ayala?
So to add, on what I understood from his explanation of the second half, where it says the tzaddik will not turn his mind to idleness. Yeah, maybe that, I guess.
Yeah.
Also just the second half in general, that like through being involved in this tzedek, not only are you doing life, like are you being involved in the things which are true life, but by occupying your mind with that, your mind won't turn to like idleness.
That's also true. Right. That's a good point. Right. Meaning it. So it's possible. See, it's really hard about this Rבינו Yona. He doesn't really give us the Dibur HaMaskil for the second half. So it's hard to see how he's like using the second half. But I like saying that like he's, by occupying your mind in tzedek, you're kind of warding off the death, by constantly occupying your mind with life-giving thoughts. Okay, that's good. Let's do the Meiri and then let's do the Mobim and the call it a night. Okay. So the Meiri says, funny, look how short it is. So he says, Hadvarim Pshutim. This is obvious. You gotta love it when he says that, okay? So he says, these statements are obvious. That from the path of tzedakah will come life by way of recompense. And recompense, Meiri usually learns it both as like natural benefits and what do you call it? Hashgacha. Uvederech nesivasa, and on the way of its path, Ratzalomar shel tzedakah, namely of tzedakah, al mavis. Ein batzad hamavis. There is no aspect of death. Okay, and then he just explains grammatically. Ubeis ba'orach moshechas asma v'acheres ima v'milos v'derech klomer uv'derech nesiva lashon kaful. Okay, fine. So he says, okay, that's it. And then he says derech nister. So the nister is orach tzedakah, the way of tzedakah. Romez al shlemus hamidos, alludes to perfection of midos. Derech klal, in a general manner. V'amar shemimenu yimashech hashlemus, and he's saying that from this perfection will come shehu hachaim hanitzchim, which is eternal life, she'ein bahem maves, which has no death in it. All right, so he seems to be saying this is just a generic idea that you need perfection of midos in order to get perfection of the intellect, which is a whole topic in its own right that there are many other pesukim about. So I don't want to dwell on this tonight. Now, let's get this this Malvim here. Okay, this is going to be the let's hope that he like makes good with his promise of like explaining the nuances of the terms. Okay, so he says I'm just going to start from here. So he says yesh havdel bein derech nesiva orach nesiva. There is a difference between derech, orach, nesiva. Haderech hu haderech hagadol hakavul l'rabim me'ir le'ir. So the derech is the intercity highway. Ha'orach mispared min haderech hagadol el hakfarim. Okay, the orach is the exits from the highway to the towns. Vanasiv, and the nasiv, we already read this, is for individuals. Oh, I forgot to read this Meiri last time. Tzedakah, this is an interesting notion of tzedakah. Okay, refers to mitzvos between man and God. That is not how I would have said tzedakah. I would have said it between man and man. Okay. Holchos ba'orach, follow the orach. Okay, so the exits to the villages. Ki eno derech kolel orach miuchad, because it's not the big highway, but it is a specific highway, a specific road. El Bale Hadas, for those who practice the religion, asher kidsham b'kedushaso, who have been sanctified with its sanctity. No idea what he means here yet. Okay. Hold on just one second. Let me just make this bigger. Yeah. Uv orach zeh yesh chaim. On that orach is chaim, is life. Bein chaya olam hazeh, bein chaya olam haba. whether in this world or the next. As it is written, that a person will do them and live by them. However, tzedakah has a private path, a nesiv, which individuals walk on. Like Moshe, Eliyahu, and those like them. This is almost sounding like Avram ben Aramam here. He's kadshu lios kamal yasharis, who sanctified themselves to be like the ministering angels, tzidkas Hashem asa, and have done the righteousness of Hashem. Okay. Shatzedakah shelo he's damakit tzidkas elyonim. Their tzedakah is like the tzedakah of the angels. I know I'm misspelling words left and right here. Okay, my computer's slowing down. That's why. Is like the tzedakah of the angels. She'ena b'nei temusa, who are not subject to death. V'lo shalat ma'az b'hem. And death cannot touch them. Rak nichnasu chai bein ha'elyonim ke'eliyahu. Rather, they went up into the supernal realm alive like Eliyahu. O mesu misas neshika k'Moshe Rבינו, or died by the kiss like Moshe Rבינו. V'shehagam shebihis pashta min hageshem v'his halachta min ha'elyonim ba'u al derech hakavu al elyonim shezeh nikra derech. Okay, so through the manner in which they separated from the material, they went onto the fixed path of the higher existences, which is called derech. Nevertheless, while they were still in their material garb, nikra nesiva, ki bnei aliyah hema muatim, they were called nesiva because the I guess superior beings are few. Umisha holach b'derech nesiva sheba min hanesiv hayechidi hazeh al haderech lios lo mahalchim bein haomdim hanitzchim az al maves lo yem maves klal. Okay, I'll type this last part. I'm getting a little. Oh, you know why? I keep on forgetting. The clock change really messed me up. I'm at 9:30 in my mind right now. I should stop soon. Umisha holach b'derech nesiva. I'm not going to translate the last part. Okay, so what he's saying is he's saying that tzedakah is the mitzvos between man and God. Okay, that is good for normal people. Okay, that is an orach. So that's people like us who keep halacha. But then there are personal paths that branch off, which go right to the derech. And he's saying derech means that you are basically living life like angels who are not subject to death. And that's going to either, I don't know what his understanding of Eliyahu is, that you enter into heaven alive, or you're like Moshe and you die with a kiss. But both of them seem to be saying the same idea, that you're so not connected to physicality that like you're almost a purely spiritual being, even if you're living in the physical. So the question is, does this have any relevance to us? Seems to be for really, really high level people. That's kind of disappointing. I thought this was going to be a very Mishleic idea for us. Okay, I think we should stop for tonight. Let's review and then stop. I think we had a good haul here. So reviewing the main ideas that we have. Okay, so we have Rivki's idea of the, which I like the idea, Rivki, your first idea, but I don't think it is what our pasuk is saying, because I don't see any benefit. I don't see any evidence that we're talking about how other people relate to you. So I actually don't think that this first idea, even though it's true, I don't think it's a good fit. Second idea, though, I really like, that this pasuk is really talking about how to get immortality, right, in a Mishleic way, which is you'll find immortal life on the path of tzedakah, because what you're doing is you are investing yourself in the system, which will continue on beyond you. You know, your own life as an individual is going to come to an end, but you can perpetuate the system, and that's going to be forever in this world. And it's also going to prevent you from being subject to death, which is like entropy or deterioration, because either you could say that the results are not going to deteriorate, or you could say that like we were getting from the Rבינו Yona, that like as long as you're involved in this path, then you yourself are not going to be like subject to those forces. Okay, Avital had a good approach, which we did not finish, which is that it's really defining the path of tzedakah, saying that in order for this to be a true path to tzedakah, it can't involve any death. You can't do anything that's going to compromise that ultimate destination or contradict it. And our question on that was, what about the cases where the Torah does demand death, either a death penalty, killing a Malik or something like that, or giving your life al Kiddush Hashem? You know, I think that needs to be developed a little bit. Okay, then we had Yosef's idea, which is what makes this life worth living, given the fact that you're going to die. So it really is saying that in this world, you can live a full life by, I'm going to merge this with Rבינו Yona, by occupying your mind with tzedek and chachma. And that will result in immortality, which is the nesiv, which is the personal path that you're going to take after that. But that's like an afterthought. You know, that's like that's the side benefit. But that's going to be the closest that you can get to living a life of immortality in this world. A second idea we didn't really develop, but the first idea though was that combined with David and combined with me, is that it's obvious that you're going to get perks, you're going to get benefits from living the life of tzedakah. That, you know, that a lot of these pesukim have dealt with that. But in addition, you're going to be immune to the bad things, because any obstacle that comes your way can be made into the path itself. And anything that you do can be used to further your commitment to justice, to tzedek, or utilize as a resource in your tzedek. So you're not going to encounter any mavis along the way. So that's a good idea. And then Ayala's idea was that this is definitively a path of life, that it gives you life and it avoids death, not accidentally but intrinsically. And we said, who needs to hear this? The person who wants to deny that there is a path of life, you know, that there is something that is like a surefire recipe you can follow to get life and to not get death. And that person is going to chalk up the tzaddik successes to like chance, and is going to like pounce on the failures as evidence that he's not really on the right path. But that's a misguided approach. And then we had Rבינו Yona. Okay, good. Tough pasuk, but very good. And Hadran Alach, I know there's not really a division in the pesukim Mishlei, but you know, we're done with chapter 12. I went back just to see, you know, because you hear 3 chapters that we've done in the last 3+ years, 3 years and 2 months. And 3 chapters doesn't sound like a lot, but I added up the number of pesukim, and it's 91 pesukim, which is a whole lot of Mishlei in 3 chapters. So that's just crazy, you know. It's a lot of good ideas. We don't remember all of them, but as Ryan Moskowitz says, you know, if you see an idea clearly once, then it affects your soul. And we've definitely seen more than 91 ideas clearly, because we got a good couple ones for each one. So it's been good, and you know, God willing, it'll continue on to chapter 13. Oh, speaking of continuing, sorry, that was a bad segue. I have to cancel shiur next week because I have parent-teacher conferences and I can't get out of them. So unless there's some like, the only hope is if parents for some reason only sign up for like early in the night, then maybe I can like do Mishlei like slightly later. Yeah, but for now, assume that there's no shiur. I'll let you know as soon as I know if that's going to change.
Do you have to like do it on that day? Like, why don't you just Zoom with them the next day?
I have to do it on that day because all the parents, you know, devote their time to coming, you know, at one time, and I'm not going to try to arrange calls with, you know, with 30 plus parents on my own time throughout and on their own time. So
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
in other words, the answer is the world doesn't revolve around our Mishlei shiur, unfortunately. Yeah.
Oh shit. I thought that maybe.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thanks for coming tonight, and until next time.
All right.
Thank
Bye.
you.